Well, let's continue to discuss this then. The mass shooting in Bekkersdal has once again brought violent crime into sharp focus, underscoring how communities across the country continue to face organised and gun-related violence. While the attack took place in Gauteng, similar patterns have long played out in parts of the Cape Flats, where gang activity remains a key driver of shootings and insecurity. As police carry out these raids and operations, questions remain about why such violence persists despite ongoing interventions. Joining us now to unpack this is criminal law expert Allis. Ian, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time. Let's start then with the mass shooting that happened in Gauteng recently, where 11 people were shot dead. From a legal perspective, what does the mass shooting in Bekkersdal tell us about the state of violence and organised crime in this country?
Unfortunately, what it does is it paints a very bleak picture as far as where we're going and the actual extent of violent crime, whether it's gang related, whether it's individuals acting in isolation as their own private party, if one could say it that way, versus a lot of the organized gangsterism that we in actual fact see where it's under specific long-running gangs. What it is showing is that the propensity for violence is escalating, that there's no fear about what is going to in actual fact happen, and it's becoming more brazen and out there. So basically what we're going through is an extreme type of violent consequence to anything. So instead where one might go ahead and see it as being petty, we've dealing with massive escalations coupled with other issues of where they're getting all of these type of firearms from and how is it coming about and who is feeding into these systems, whether it's full-on organized cartels or whether it's individual smaller groups. The fact is that they're carrying huge amounts of firepower, which is a major problem. And secondly, that it's becoming also, it's not central to gang activities. It's basically, it's everywhere. Wherever it's becoming more opportunistic as well in its effect. And just overall, the escalation in violence is becoming more problematic.
Yeah. Whilst the 11 suspects who appeared in court today are not directly linked to the Gauteng Tavern attack where 11 people were killed, we are beginning to see that some of them are known as residents from other countries. In this particular incident, the suspects who appeared in court from Lesotho, they face charges of murder, attempted murder, possession of unlicensed firearms, live ammunition. They're undocumented. There's also cases of 1 or 2 having previous convictions. I want us to talk then about the prevalence of gangs. I mean, we've seen in the Western Cape, police carrying out these raids and these operations. Questions, of course, remain about why such violence persists despite these ongoing interventions, particularly where gangs are concerned. We've seen, of course, the successful arrests following these raids, but how effective are these reactive measures disrupting organized gun violence legally and gang-related incidences?
The problem is it's a bit of a 1 step forward, 2 steps back. The fact is that as good as our police can try and improve things and then try and improve arrests and create this image that they are actually improving and cracking down on gang violence, it's still highly prevalent, and it's a drop in the ocean. Is they supposedly getting certain kingpins, but we've also gone ahead and seen a lot of high-profile alleged, and I use the term very carefully, alleged gangster-related matters fall flat or just get postponed indefinitely, and people are out on bail. Even if they're behind bars, there's still issues with regards to power control. And this is why one must take a look at differentiating the different types of gang-related activities, where you have your very much more organized gangs, like, for example, what you might have in the Cape Flats, where it's the different gangs are fighting over different aspects, whether it's guns or drugs or human trafficking, versus a lot of these other where it's foreign nationals coming into the country with pre-existing charges. How are they getting in past the border? Who's bringing these people in? And if they're known, why are they not basically? One person is supposedly has already been convicted of attempted murder. How are they coming back into the country following deportation? Surely there must be certain, it's almost that the police, when it comes with certain gang activities, need to look at prevention rather than reaction in regards to people of interest.
Then, the question does remain. I mean, do our laws impose sufficient consequences, on those who supply illegal firearms? I mean, from your experience, where do cases involving these guns, involving gun violence, often collapse? I mean, is it during investigations, prosecution, or in fact in our courts?
The main problem is it's even prior to the prosecution, because it's even pre-investigation, because a lot of these are firearms, if you take a look, and the statistics are astounding, are actually through the police themselves, through people in the military, where our actual resources, these are not just simply guns that are being stolen from legal gun owners. You're talking about heavy-duty military rifles. These are coming directly through our military circles. So a lot of if one could say, the investigation has already collapsed because of where they're getting it from. They're getting it from the police. So no one's going to be able to actually investigate it to begin with. So the investigations are basically dead before they even start, because that's where the supply is actually coming from. And that's where the biggest danger is. So your system, even if you've got adequate sentencing priorities, nobody's investigating into it because of the corruption element and the procurement of these firearms through our government department, and through the corruption, through the military, through the Department of Defense and SABC and those type of organizations, is what makes it even more difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, based on what you're saying, ultimately, the law on its own cannot curb gun violence. That probably requires a political intervention to be effective. Is that what you are saying, basically?
Well, let me put it to you this way, there's almost like two sets of gun laws for legal possession of firearms, and laws for illegal possessors. The laws for legal possession of firearms are almost being over-prosecuted to the point where people can't get licenses renewed, and the other groups don't even have to worry about it. If you're an illegal firearm holder and you basically getting your guns through contacts and through corruption, there's no risk for you whatsoever, because no one's going to go ahead and prosecute you. They're not going to investigate it. It's just that firearm might disappear and another firearm will end up in the exact same person's possession. So there is not sufficient. There'll never be sufficient laws to prosecute it, because you can't get it out. You can't get it off the ground because of the corruption involved. You actually have to start curbing and accounting for the firearms that are coming into the country legally through our legitimate government organizations. And once you can deal with that and start seeing who the people are that are distributing the firearms through those illegal means, then it'll also start helping to curb down that issue of how those illegal firearms are coming into people's hands. And then one could take a look at where the other illegal firearms that are through smuggling and the like, which are not corruption related, then you can go ahead and prosecute those a little bit more fuller, because there's nothing to muddy the waters anymore.
And Ian, as we wrap up our conversation, what do communities do? I mean, oftentimes you find that communities say that they feel trapped. On the one hand, they are feeling trapped between gangs as well as heavy-handed policing or no policing at all. Where do they then legally have a right to also protect themselves as residents of this country?
The problem is that, and this was what happened in the West Rand in Gauteng is a prime example. The people are being tried, who are the dangers, are your actual foreigners. I'm not trying to do it to say that all foreigners are dangerous and they're all evil and that kind of thing. But here you have a situation where what are the people? The people can't really do anything. Yes, they can band together and they can try setting up their own community policing forums, but then they need the assistance from the police themselves. And if the police are corrupt and they're not doing anything, or they're in short supply because of a lack of resources, there's very little that the individual who's fearing for their safety can actually do, because they're not going to get that assistance. The only thing they can possibly do is almost create their own little personalized security officers themselves through community protection forums and deal with it that way. But then there's a fine line between vigilante mob justice and actual forces and protective services that are permitted by law. So it's a very fine line as to where they're able to react, so they can take the people in, but then the police have still got to go ahead and build the case, that's where a lot of it collapses.
Absolutely. Ian, thank you so much for your analysis. Really do appreciate it. Those, of course, were the views of criminal law expert Ian Allis.